Back to chapter 3 then. Nouthetic counseling. And by the way, I did create a quiz and then I threw it away because I said this is just a stupid quiz. All right, so you're off the hook tonight because I convinced myself that the quiz is dumb. And at the end of the day, 6 months from now, are you going to care? It was kind of a mix and match thing. And, who started NA and C? What's the name we associate with BCF? What's the name we associate with this? And it doesn't really matter. 6 months from now, are you going to care? And different things like that. So I looked at the end of the quiz and I said, well, this is dumb. Let's just not do this tonight. There's something more edifying we can do with our time tonight. But the little role playing that they do in this drama here between Trey and Deb. Did you do the reading? Okay, everybody? You? Okay? No? Okay. I enjoyed this. I enjoyed this because the Bobgans made use of their own training material and just laid it out there and said, this is what it is. Evaluate it. Okay? Kind of what I'm doing with Bobgan material. I'm using their material, laying it out there, saying, interact with it, relate to it. Hold it up to the scrutiny of Scripture. And I love what they highlight here. The sessions are nouthetic counseling presented at its very best. The training material represents best case scenario. This is everything's going ideally according to their structure, according to their program. And as we look at it, we think, oh my goodness, if that's the best case scenario, what happens when it goes bad? How much downhill? Where does it go? Where does it go? All right. So starts off, and you'll also note a lot of these are pretty similar to each other. There was a lot of overlap in the 3 different sections that you read. So gathering data. At the beginning of the video, Patton describes the main things he tries to accomplish in the first session. Gather data, discern the problems, gain involvement. In other words, this gain involvement means that you're establishing this rapport. You're connecting with the counselee. And you connect with the counselee by not condemning them, by understanding what they're saying, by validating. You know what? I can appreciate, thank you for expressing it, and I can certainly understand why. And so you interact and you relate and you validate. Maybe you don't agree with what they're saying, but there's a lot of agreement that comes across as you accept what they say. They actually train their people in doing this. So establishing rapport so that they will talk about their problems and then be open to the counselor to advise. Give hope, teach, and assign homework. He also said that he used the personal data inventory sheet, which asks counselees to list the main problem, which they have already done about, what they've already done about it, what they expect from their counseling, and how they view themselves, and what other information the counselor should know. Okay? And then based on that, boy, is he armed. He is armed. The counselor has all kinds of directions that he can build on and take it and explore this and explore that and get nosy about this, get nosy about that. All right. They use Proverbs 18:11 as their key verse. This came up in our teen class a few weeks ago. Proverbs 18:13, excuse me. He who gives an answer before he hears it is folly and a shame to him. Now, that's true as far as it goes related to Proverbs 18:13. I'm not going to dispute Proverbs 18:13. That if you give an answer before you hear, that's folly and a shame. That's ridiculous. If you don't hear the question, how do you give the answer? You just assume you know the question? You just assume you know? Now, to take that one little snippet, that one little proverb, and build an entire philosophy of counseling on it that says, oh, well, before I can give an answer, before I can solve all your problems and give you all the deep insights and all the understanding that are just going to unlock everything and just make your life wonderful, then I can't do that before I hear everything. I've got to hear all the nitty-gritty. I've got to hear all the gory details. I've got to hear all the things you don't want to tell me. All the things you're ashamed to talk about. Those things especially are the most important. Okay? Because the more you withhold, the more that you repress, then you're doing damage. You got to express. That's your solution. That's your cure. So we'll discuss that as well. But a lot of what I'm giving you tonight, actually, I'm cheating because it's coming out of next week's reading material. A lot of it's coming out of chapter 4. But you've seen it already. The introduction took you through Freud and the idea of repression versus expression and the cure that comes through discussion, as if talking about something solves problems. Okay? All right. So you fill out this huge form. And then after you fill out this huge form, this PDI, they call it, then they got the opportunity, then armed with all that information, they can build on that. Patton says that he needs to understand completely what is going on in your life before giving any advice, so that he won't be a fool in God's eyes or give them lousy advice. However, to understand completely, Patton and all counselors would need to hear from all the people that counselees talk about behind their backs. I mean, if he truly wants all the information possible, then he needs to bring in all these people that are being spoken about in their absence and get the story straight from them. To have an objective approach. And even if he was able to do that, which you can't do, you're still not going to have a complete objective, because every person coming in is going to color it with their own subjectivity, with their own self-defense mechanism, with their own fallen heart, their own expression of Jeremiah 17. Right? So, I mean, ultimately, the idea that these counselors have just this wisdom and insight to know the heart of man is fallacious to start with. All right. Other things here related to the Kangaroo Court proceedings. I thought this was interesting. The psychotherapist that even admitted 10% of the time clients lie to the therapist, the other 90% of the time they distort the truth to make themselves look good. Okay? I mean, why are they making jokes about it? They're making jokes about it because it's common. It's what their life is consistently. All right, with the PDI in hand, already loaded with some amount of sinful expressions, Patton proceeds to ask his prying, probing questions that precipitate sinful communication on the part of the counselees. He asks for a brief life history. Then he goes on. This, anyway, I'm going to skip down through this. It just gets more and more discouraging. The dishonorable communication. Throwing things out there about the wife, throwing things out there about the husband, throwing things out there about the parents. All right? What value is there in any of that? And what scriptures are they violating in pursuing that line of discussion? Countless. Several. I thought this was just so right on target in laying out the fact that husbands are commanded to love their wives, not trash them in the view of this counselor. Wives are commanded to respect their husbands, not trash them in the hearing of this counselor. All right. But boy, the counselors are trained to really pick up on this and pick up on that and feed off of this and feed off of that. And it's just, as you read through these things, you're thinking, man, and this is the biblical model, what they call biblical counseling. All right? And it's just heartbreaking as you read down through this. All right. Prying into private matters, the sex life, and other personal issues here. Tell me more. Describe. These open-ended questions. Don't ask questions that have yes and no answers. Ask the open-ended questions. And then coming up with solutions like no Bible, no TV. Who's this guy? Bossing this guy, right? Can you imagine pretty quickly why husbands don't have time for this, don't care for any of this? Like I'm a little kid and this guy's my dad going to tell me what to do. No Bible, no TV. And it just becomes a manipulative thing. And it just seems, one of the many, it says here, and I agree with this, one of the many reasons why traditional men do not want to be in counseling is that they are treated in unmanly ways. Patton's no Bible, no TV is a perfect example of undermining the husband in front of his wife. And very quickly the husband just figures out, you know what, the counselor's on her side. I'm the bad guy in all this. What is this? How does this work? So this is reason enough why the real Treys of the world do not return for counseling. All right. And yet, this is the methodology they promote. They teach and train their counselors to do this exact thing. To come up with these solutions, to come up with these provisions. All right. I'm convinced biblical Christianity will reach men in ways that this feminized counseling approach will not do. All right? because it's going to hit men, it's going to hit men hard. And it's going to lay it out there in terms of expectations and responsibilities. And it's going to nail men first and foremost to say, you're the accountable party. A ministry that's focused on the Word of God is going to appropriately teach that. It's going to hammer the men 10 times harder than it ever hammers the women. The angel of the Lord didn't go to the Garden of Eden looking for Adam and Eve. He went to the Garden of Eden looking for Adam and said, Adam, where are you? Now, both Adam and Eve were fallen, but he didn't ask Adam and Eve, where are the two of you? He says, Adam, where are you? And he starts with the accountable party. And it's always that way. It's always top down. Judgment always begins with a delegated responsibility. Vital that we understand that. All right. Anyway, that's the nouthetic counseling approach. The idols of the heart counseling. The name on this is David Tripp, Paul David Tripp. And the things here, CCEF, Christian Counseling and Educational Foundation. Now, there are some things here that I appreciate, but other things here that I think are problematic. The way he connects the heart with the motives and endeavors to cause the person to gain insight into his own heart is very similar to a psychoanalytic therapist's attempt to expose the hidden reasons. In other words, just search yourself, find the real answers, find what's hidden. All right. Delving, digging, and evil speaking, more of the process there. This is the guy that spells out how to answer the best questions, that get the most digging information and things. Don't allow the yes and no questions. He has over 25 here as examples. What things in your marriage make you sad? Okay. Well, you know, this is common to all marriage. It's common to man. All testing is common to man. And listing these things, dredging them up, what value is that going to be? Like, you know, do I want to list 9 things that drive me up a wall? What's that going to accomplish when it comes down to it? Pick one area of your marriage where you think you have problems. Describe what is wrong and what each of you has done to solve it. Anyway, more issues like this. All right. I want to take the time. I do want to get into the Gimel in Psalm 119 tonight. Do we have any questions on this? I know I'm going very rapidly through the reading here. I expect that you've done the reading tonight. Was there something that jumped out at you that didn't make any sense, you wanted an answer to? Anything that you wanted clarification of? Otherwise, I'm not going to read the chapter with you tonight or assume that you haven't read it. Yes, sir?
When they use the term problem-centered counseling, can you define that? Or could it be defined as the problem is based on the sinful pattern of man?
No.
How would you?
Yeah, we need to redefine the terms of this. We talked about this in the introduction, but I'll be glad to review it here tonight. Because it comes up repeatedly. Problem-centered counseling rather than Christ-centered ministry. That's the contrast. Problem-centered counseling means that we are focused and fixated on the problem or problems themselves. That means that's what takes center stage. The problem is my crummy marriage. And so week after week after week, we're going to come and that's what takes center stage. That's problem-centered. The agenda item for today is problem. Okay? And we're going to be problem-centered, focused on problems rather than focused on Christ, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. And so that's what it means by problem-centeredness. Absolutely. All right, Doug, you had a question.